Hey guys, today I'd like to bring you a deck building discussion video. I kind of ran into this idea as of lately I've been trying to find ideas for more decks to put up for the channel, and it got me thinking, like, why don't I analyze the importance of specific colors in the game of Dragon Ball, and I hope you guys enjoy. So this video, I really want to talk about the importance of the black cards. These cards are absolutely phenomenal, and to me, I really feel that every deck should at least try to play some black card. Doesn't matter what you go with, but they're really powerful cards, and the thing that I find so great about them is that their effects are extremely versatile. So today I'll show you guys all of the cool things you can do with these cards. If you're newer to the game, it'll give you a good idea of why would you want to play these cards. And if you've already been playing this game for a while, I think this video could still help you out, maybe give you a new perspective on things. But I think I just get into it. So on the versatility of effects, to start, black cards have great starter potential, and they really can get your deck going. So sometimes a lot of decks don't really have good strategies of finding the cards they need, or just being able to get cards out of the deck isn't really something that certain decks can do. And that's where cards like Scientist Fu and Time Patrol Trunks really kick in. If you don't know, Time Patrol Trunks looks at the top two cards, and you get to add one to your hand. And Scientist Fu just outright, for one energy and warping 7 cards, you can draw 2 cards. And to me, one of the things about this game is if you don't have a lot of cards that search you cards or that self-awaken, it's really hard to get a lot of cards in your hand if your leader's not awakened and you're not drawing cards from your attacks. So these cards brought a really interesting mechanic, as every deck can use them and they can start any deck. So maybe your deck can't get 7 cards to the drop zone fast enough, but it can get to 3 fast enough, so maybe a Time Patrol Trunks would be better than a Scientist Fu. Or maybe your deck is just that fast and it can get to Scientist Fu, and you get rewarded for drawing 2 cards, and on top of that, you get a card that does double strike. So in my opinion, this is probably my favorite black card. It does so much when it comes to netting you that advantage, that for me, this is a card that I don't try to play in every deck, although I do understand that not every deck could support it. Now from there, another thing that black cards offer is removal. So let's go over to the Mass Saiyan. Interestingly enough, all the Mass Saiyan warp cards, they remove cards from the field. Like, it's actually really good. So the original Mass Saiyan, so these two have very similar effects, but basically the difference is this does not remove blockers, but it has double strike, and this one can remove blockers, and I believe it doesn't have double strike. Okay, yeah, it does not. And another advantage to this is that it helps you self-awaken. So you get the versatility on how you want to remove cards. If you want to prioritize self-awakening, or if you want to prioritize the double strike, you get those options with these cards. And that's another thing that I find phenomenal, that even though these two cards do very similar things, they offer different advantages and different ways that you can play them. And on top of, cards that, get your deck started and net you more advantage, cards that disrupt cards on the board, another interesting things that these cards offer is great side deck choices. That's something I think isn't really discussed in this game, the importance of a side deck. but cards like Shinshin, I believe I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, and Haru Haru, against their particular matchups where these cards can get their effects, they're absolutely great to use them in. And like that's one thing that I find like really cool about these cards, so that any deck can just splash these in if the leader's color that applies for these cards is relevant in the meta. Then you could just play these cards and you'll have that answer for that specific matchup. Same thing with a card like Mira. Even though no one really plays this, the promo that the tournament shops are giving out, this has a pretty interesting effect if you're playing something that plays against a lot of blockers. Let's say a Golden Frieza. You could theoretically side this in, and all their Goldos, all of their Sorbets just can't do anything. So this is really what I felt like threw it over the top, was you could main deck really great cards, but on top of that, you have the side deck choices that are just overall good cards to play. If these are any other color, you would play that in the deck that it's for. Let's say a red deck. Oh, you definitely side this in a red deck, or any color. It doesn't matter. But the fact that any deck can play this really helps out the game, and I feel like that really gives a cool interaction with the game, as I feel like before we didn't really have that before these cards came out. And another thing that I would like to talk about is, maybe your deck is great with consistency. Maybe it can maybe it already has good removal. Your locals only does best of one, so you don't need a side deck. So, hey, if you really want, you can, go all out, go for game with a card like the other Fu, Shrouded in Mystery, and just so you can go out, try to annihilate your opponent with a card that won't let your opponent use their skills. So that's another thing that it's like, well, if you don't need the starters, if you don't need the removal, then you can play a card that just outright puts that much pressure on the board to try to game your opponent. And I know some people on YouTube have talked about this card. They've put it in their deck profiles, but I really haven't seen anyone play with it. And that's what a card like this, I feel like, is a little less impractical. But I can definitely see the usage for why someone would want to play this. It's one of those cards where, hey, if it connects, if it goes through, then your opponent's in a tough spot. So I can see why someone plays this. And another thing that I didn't talk about with these cards is, in the game of Dragon Ball, there really is no way to get cards back. And I didn't have for the video, I forgot to grab it, but the Overseeing Trunks, I believe, is one of the only cards in the games that lets you get a card back, not only from your drop zone, but your warp zone. So I think that's like pretty incredible, because you can go back, you could grab your super combos, or you can grab back another warp card that you need, another Fu, or another Overseeing Trunks. So on top of that, the warping cards, they can also get you the cards back from the warp zone with the other Trunks. So like, to me, when it comes to the ability to have so many practical uses, this mechanic and this color is just phenomenal. Like, I feel like I can't say enough good things about these cards. In many ways, it's very impressive how versatile these cards are. Again, if you need the starter, you have the starter options. If you need the removal, you have them. If you really want to get something back, you have that option. If you just don't know what to side, well, they have options for you too. And I really feel that every deck should be playing some form of these cards, because the overall value that they give you to your strategy is, in my opinion, irreplaceable. when I first started playing Dragon Ball, these cards didn't exist. And one of the things I noticed, it was very hard to extend your plays. There really weren't much extenders. You know, you had the 7-drop cooler that got you freezes back from your grave, and you had other cards, you know. But there was nothing that was like consistent. Every deck can have a way of extending their plays. And these cards really just allow you to play your turns out in completely different ways, as you have that higher ceiling and the increase of decision trees in the way you play your deck. And that's something that I feel like will be great for the game in the long run. And I look forward to like the newer cards that they release for this mechanic, or even the newer cards that they designed to beat these cards. Because ultimately enough, even though these cards, in my opinion, are fantastic, there's no guarantee that they will be in the long run. You know, maybe a mechanic that stops them comes out and these cards won't be as good. That's definitely a thing too, but I feel like for the time being, these cards are phenomenal, and you have the options to improve your deck with whatever faults it has with these cards. That's something that I feel that is so important with deck building, that if your deck just fails at something, so these cards will pick up the slack. And in my opinion, I feel like you won't be underwhelmed with these cards. Like, I think they're great, and you should definitely give them a try. You know, like Time Patrol Trunks out of this whole set has probably been the most popular card that's been played, but overall, these cards are fantastic. Please let me know your thoughts on these cards, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.